about the latest and greatest in the National Basketball Association. Notably, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics today, have kind of a lengthy discussion about their playoff odds. We think they, obviously they're surging right now. They're fresh off a 9-game winning streak that was recently snapped, but they are exciting all of a sudden again. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown look great. So we're going to dive into that. We'll talk a little bit about Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac. What is up with their future here with the Magic? What's kind of going on there. Additionally, we're going to talk a little bit about just some of the tanking teams, who wants to get a top pick more than the others, who's maybe trying to develop their players more right now. Kind of discuss some of that. Anything else you want to go over today, Dalton?
No, I mean, we'll see how it goes.
Well, let's go right away then. We're going to talk about the Boston Celtics today, previewing their playoff odds. Currently, they are surging up in the Eastern playoff standings. They're fresh off a 9-game winning streak that was snapped by the Detroit Pistons. But what's that?
Really just Cade Cunningham, but and Sadiq, I guess.
Yeah, carrying whatever else is on that team. But the Boston Celtics overall, I think they're now 34-25.
They're 6th seed. They're the next team is half a game behind them.
So I mean, they're getting right to where they should be. There's a lot of good teams in this Eastern Conference right now. I think as long as you're in the top 6, maybe get into the top 5 aspirationally, I think that's great. And they've got a lot of momentum right now. They made some switches on defense that wasn't working necessarily early on. Udoka is showing that he's willing to adjust. Unfortunately, Marcus Smart went down recently, but overall, this team, I think, has a bright future ahead into the playoffs. We both know they're one of the brightest young teams in the league, period. And, they've got some playoff experience, too. So we'll see what happens this year. What are your kind of thoughts just overall on these guys heading into the postseason?
Yeah, I like it. I think they should feel a little bit good. They certainly made it. They know what they need to improve on, and they're making improvements. That's what the huge trade for Derek White was for, and it's certainly going to help them out. To me, it comes down to that. So, I think they have enough star power, which is actually really nice to start off of. You look at other playoff teams, you're like, they need another star. They need more. Like the Cavs you'd like to see another star. Obviously the Kings. So I think they have all that. It's just that primary playmaker. And I think it's a very similar storyline regarding Tatum to what Giannis had last year. I think we know he's a superstar, but can he lead this team to more? Can he get there? So I don't know if he can make that jump. I don't know if he's not as good as Giannis.
They have a lot in front of them in the East, including Giannis. They've got Kevin Durant to worry about, James Harden and Embiid on another team. It's just East has gotten a lot tougher.
Yeah. And I think them and the Hornets both suffer from they didn't change as much, and that was a fault because the East got better. Everyone made improvements, and if you're not getting better, you're getting worse in this league.
Hey, they brought back Daniel Tice. Talk about getting better.
Yeah. Well, now they got better, and now we're actually seeing them get better because of the acquisition of White. I don't think re-signing Schroeder, that wasn't the best.
Tice, and they were winning games before that. They were starting to win.
They were
just because Tatum has obviously his season's turned around. Jaylen Brown's still having a great season. But they've bought in a little bit more defensively, and I think the rotations have made a bit more sense recently too. Obviously, Dennis Schroeder was a fine player, but I don't think he made as much sense as a backup point. Rather give those minutes to maybe Pritchard or Naismith.
Yeah, I think he's fine when he's filling that bench role. He's certainly not the starting point guard they need. I think. Right now they're 20th in assist turnover. Usually if they go out and get that guy, you hope that White fills that bench role that they really need and facilitate the bench scoring. That would be perfect. I think he's great. I think they're just a piece away from really being talking about a contender that's an elite playmaker. I mean, also they're 24th in pace. They have way too many ISOs. Like their main plays consist of either Jalen doing an ISO or Jason doing an ISO, which
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
the
clean
offense is
offense. It's
not
very
very
stagnant.
creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 24th in pace is exactly what I just said. So like I I think they can do it. I think there's a market. I think there's playmakers that will become available soon. I think that'll really help them out. I
Yeah, I
also
don't
would
know
like to
who's
see.
gonna become available. I mean, who's
Well,
gonna?
I mean, I think Rubio would certainly be a nice fit on this team because they need a playmaker that doesn't necessarily need to score. They
Yeah,
just
he's
need
an
an elite
ACL.
playmaker. Well, it's coming off next year. He's still off. He's still going to be.
They
He'll
said
get
they want to
signed
get a
this offseason.
solution better and sooner because, like, I
Yeah.
mean, he's not gonna be ready to start next season.
No, that's starting
Like
next season.
midway through. I would. I don't know.
He's also not my. He's not my final answer. He's just one guy off the top of my head. I think they would improve a lot though if they. It just doesn't. I mean, they might on the book, but it just doesn't seem like Jalen Brown is fit into their offense. Not that he doesn't fit in their offense, that they just don't write enough offense for Jalen Brown. A lot of it just seems like ISOs from the wing, and he just gets like secondary or like the last 10 seconds they'll give it to him and be like, make a play. Like it doesn't. It just doesn't seem as involved in the offensive scheme as or Udoka has for Tatum. So I'd like to
Yeah,
see that change a lot more. You know, I think he's certainly a great talent, and I think under the certain leadership, he could come out to be even more of a superstar. I think if Jalen
yeah.
wasn't there, would you really see that?
No, they're
Jason,
a
I
very
mean,
talented duo, Jalen and Jason, but they have a tough time coexisting in offense because they both are primary scorers, and they do need someone who can get the ball, in between to them and get them buying in more. Like, honestly, a guy who they would love to have, who the Wolves are not going to give up, is Patrick Beverly. Like, they're looking for
that'd be nice.
that type of glue guy that can get the motivation out of those other guys. And that's what's been so great for the Wolves with Beverly. Who's someone else that can maybe work for the Celtics. I don't know. Maybe if they can get Mike Conley somehow, that'd be great.
That would be great. Yeah.
He's not money. But, someone like that, I think it would be great.
Yeah, not that he's available, but I think Alonzo Ball type player is kind of perfectly
Oh,
what they
yeah.
need. Just an off-ball defender,
Yeah, they tried
certainly a
to
great
get him
playmaker.
in the
Yeah,
offseason. It sounded like that was a decent possibility. I was like, oh, damn, that's a good fit.
that would have been the answer, honestly. But I mean, there's others out there. We just have to think that Mike Conley, I mean, given another year, I mean, he'll probably by the time he's like ready and available because Donovan Mitchell's wanting to shake things up, he'll probably be too old.
Yeah,
But
that's kind of starting to
certainly,
feel like they're getting old.
yeah, there's certainly players that are out there that we could talk that we can make a later episode about. But I really think it's a really nice situation to be in. I mean, we're only talking about one thing. Like their defense can hold up. They don't have a poor defender, really. Jason Tatum's a good defender. Brown's a really nice defender. They got Horford. They got Robert. They got Marcus Smart. I mean, they have good defenders. Their defense is fine. It's not like they don't have the star power. It's literally just down to this thing. Just I like to see them push the pace, get a better playmaker, and that's not a bad thing to have. And I think we could see them in the second round. I think is their peak. I think
I don't
that's
know
the
if that's their
same
peak. I mean, I
for
think
this year.
I think
This
their
year.
peak is like, Eastern Conference Finals this year.
This
If
year?
like, yeah, if like all goes right, like why not? The Hawks made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year.
True, but the Hawks made it in the Eastern Conference Finals when there wasn't 5 teams that could make it to the finals. Like you look at the Bulls, Nets, Sixers, Bucks, and Heat, all those teams could make it to the finals. And one of those teams isn't even going to make it out of the first round.
I
So
don't think a lot of those teams. I don't think all those teams are like that much better than the Celtics. I think like the Celtics aren't that far behind. Like they've got some really solid players that could get them hot in the postseason. I mean, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals when Tatum was in his rookie year.
yeah, but that was a very depleted East. That was when they were talking about just collapsing both conferences because the East was so bad.
We have no idea what could happen. I mean, we think the
Yeah.
Sixers are strong, but Harden has always been a playoff choker. Joel Embiid doesn't have great knees, and Harden is injury prone as well. The Nets, we all know their problems. The Bucks have been dealing with injuries as well all season long. The Heat, they're full of fragile players that have been dealing with injuries as well. I mean, you never know. I'm not saying like you're ever gonna wish injuries on someone, but I mean injuries they happen a lot, and like it's especially in the playoffs. Like I mean we see it happen all the time, so it's bound to happen for someone. Even just last year, we saw it with the Nets. It basically was the reason they lost.
Yeah, but I don't know. The team they've put together, I don't see it going them past the second round. I mean, they certainly could, but if they had 10 tries to do it and they had to redid the playoffs every time, I'd say no. I'd say the best chance is just the second round.
Yeah,
But
we'll see.
yeah. So what one guy though, we just talked about the trade deadline last week we did a whole video about the trade deadline, and the guy that I've seen personally who has benefited majorly is a guy on the Indiana Pacers, Oshae Brissett. Now he had a huge role at the end of last year. You got to see him sit that he sat most of this year because Turner and Sabonis have been back in, but Sabonis and Turner were both out towards the end of last year. He was playing their center. He's a 6'7" guy, and now he's getting all the minutes he needs. He's a starting forward next to Halliburton, and he's looking great. I can throw some stats at you. This is like the last 5 games: 15.6 points per game, 7.6 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, 43, 35, 63 shooting splits. He's an undrafted player out of Syracuse, 23 years old, third year in the league. He's great. 6'7" versatile guy. Dude does everything.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
I mean, those are solid numbers for the short stint. I think he's a high energy guy, and I think the rebounding numbers are promising for his size, and the shooting numbers are promising as well. Honestly, 35% from three. I think maybe we can get some improvement there eventually, but even where it's at is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he's starting to look like a Gary Payton with the defensive ability of Covington. Maybe not as smart, but the defensive ability as Covington, and that's kind of what the mold he's fitting into. He can guard 1, 2 through 5. It's pretty amazing to see. Just that, like I said, 6'7" going up there with these 7-footers, getting all these rebounds, like playing center last year. That was the most impressive part. I won't get over it, but very good offensive rebounder, about 3.6 a game in the last 5. Once he's had actually these minutes, it's super great guy, active defender. A guy you love to watch play. It's humbling to be like this guy deserves that. Undrafted players, they're really all of them are dogs that made it this far at least.
A guy who works that hard to get 3.5 offensive rebounds, that he's gonna be endearing to his teammates all the time because he's getting them extra opportunities. He's getting their team extra points.
Yeah.
That's a win-win for everybody. High energy guy. How can you not love to have a guy like that on your team?
Yeah, and I mean the efficiencies. It's all right. I mean, 43 from the field is the main huge part. Yeah,
played. I'm fine with it.
No, yeah. So going forward, I think it's fine. Can he be a scoring option though? Like, I mean, when you are entering a rebuild, you want to look at your players and be like, who can turn out to be a scoring option, who can't. Like, obviously, Halliburton can be a scoring option. He's going to be a primary playmaker. But can you look at Brissett and be like, can this guy be a third, maybe a bench scoring piece? I think
I see him like a solid glue guy. Definitely, I mean, can get you enough points and be counted on for like, at minimum like a 13 and 6. Like it seems like he's more than capable of that.
Yeah, I'd probably say 13 and 8 more consistently, but 13 is a good number. I don't think he can be a scoring option, but I think he can, like, very much reminiscent of OG Anunoby on the role he had with the Raptors, where he's just scores when they need to, post up in the corner, defend anyone.
Valuable.
Yeah,
I mean those skills will still get you paid in this league. So.
I mean that's one of the most valuable positions. If you're not a superstar, then that's like the second bet, in my opinion, second most valuable.
At the 3, be efficient and be a good defender, continue to get the offensive rebounds, and he'll have a spot in this league for a long time.
Yeah, I'd like to see him try more shooting. I mean, he's shooting league average off three, so you'd like to, and he's only 63 from the free throw line. So it doesn't really trend in the right where he would be a really good shooter, but I'd still like to see those attempts get up a little more. I'd like to,
Yeah, I
if
mean,
he keeps
sample
at
size is
35,
small.
yeah, maybe add one more 3-pointer a game. So like take three more threes a game. I think he would be fine. I think that's perfect for his role, and I think that's what he needs. But the active defender is really nice to see. Like it's really nice to see that he has the ability to do both at this early on in his career and on this stage that the Pacers are in, just entering a rebuild where you already have a two-way piece. Two of them really in Halliburton, and I think that's a really nice start for the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing with the Suns having a guy like Michael Bridges, like why that is so valuable
Yeah,
to have
and
him
Aiden.
already on your team.
Yeah,
It brings out, helps the other guys around you as well. Um, he's a great teammate, great rebounder, and that's going to always help out your team. So,
yeah,
getting teammates
definitely.
opportunities.
Yeah, definitely a really nice surprise in this league. I mean, he's not a guy everyone talks about, and I mean, right now obviously everyone's pushing for the playoff race, but it's still worth it to mention guys like this. I mean, these
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, anytime you can find a gem undrafted, that is something to celebrate, in my opinion. So I think it's great. We're seeing more and more great undrafted players, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, I really like it. But speaking of teams rebuilding, so we're gonna take a look at the lottery, the bottom teams in the league, and who, which one do you think has the most flexibility? Like who really needs a top pick, and if they fall, they're kind of losing their opportunity, or who can afford to drop a few? Like, any teams come to mind?
Like, as in drop a few, as in win some games, or
No, I mean like when the lottery comes around, who can be like, yeah, we can drop that. So like for example, I see the most flexible team as the Rockets. The best two players that they're rebuilding around are just both wings. Some can play guard with guys like Green and Porter Jr. I mean, you could take a center, you could take a point guard, you could take another wing, you could take definitely a
I mean, the
forward.
Rockets would love to get the number one pick or at least a top three pick because
Yeah.
they have lots of flexibility. I mean, you would have thought that a guy like Christian Wood was a staple to stay there with the team, but more in reality, they might be looking to replace him.
Yeah.
And they could maybe use a guy better than Kevin Porter Jr. because he's had a disappointing season. If you have a good enough pick, maybe you get a really solid pure point guard that you put next to Jalen Green. Maybe that makes some more sense. Or, I mean, this is a strong forward draft as well. Nothing wrong with just taking best player overall.
Oh yeah, or just a really nice shooter. I mean, yeah, best player overall is certainly what the Rockets are looking for, but and they like with that flexibility with the players they have, I think they wouldn't mind if they fell. I mean, the first, I mean, I'd say we have two major forwards and obviously a center that's huge. I think Jaden Hardy will be really nice. I don't think, obviously, he's not the right fit here because they basically have Jaden Hardy and they drafted him last year, but I think the Pistons are pretty flexible too. I mean, it's basically just not point guard, right? That's just what they're not going to pick up because Cade's shown he's like, yep, give me the offense, I can run it, I can be that player you drafted. He's showing it, and that's really nice to see. And I mean, they have really nice pieces like Sadiq Bey. They have Grant, but both of them are really flexible. Sadiq can play the 2 or 3. Grant can play 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So like
And
really you
Grant
could draft anyone.
realistically will get traded at some point. He's not really part of the long-term plan, so I wouldn't worry about his position-wise when drafting. But, I think a lot of these teams are looking for big man or would be happy with that, or they're just flexible in general. But a lot of these teams have good guards. Another team that has good guards is the Thunder, and they're hoping to obviously have a great pick this year. They've every year had a lot of first round picks. They're just hoping one of them's going to be a top 3 one of these days. But hey, this last season, they had the 6 overall and they turned it into a great player. So it's fine, it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you start getting more constricted where they're especially with the draft we have, the draft class, they're hoping that they get a top pick because I mean, you fall lower, you miss out on guys like Jabari, Paolo. I think Chet is really who they're looking at. I think that would be great for them. I think they really want that. I mean, they have guys like Baisley and Roby that they would still like to develop a little more, but their center position's pretty wide open.
Yeah,
I think
they need better big man. I mean, I wouldn't worry about like Baisley or Roby when planning your future. Like those are solid players, but neither of them have shown star potential.
yeah,
And you need a guy who can be a co-star next to Giddey and Shea, because those guys look like they're gonna blossom into some real, some real diamonds.
And Dort's taking a huge jump. I mean, nobody's talking about him for most improved, 17 points per game. Still playing great defense. I mean, he's an awesome piece, but I think the most constricted
Guy.
Yeah. I think the most constricted team actually is my Magic. You look at that team, they have a very after years of never having this issue, they finally have a pretty crowd in regards to the rebuild and guys you want to develop. They have a pretty crowded front court where they have, when Fultz comes back, they're still balancing minutes between RJ, Suggs, and Cole. Fultz comes in, suddenly you got one of those guys is almost out of the rotation with the minutes that Jamal Mosley's been playing. And you look at their forwards. The forwards are also just stacked. Where do I got it? They got they got Carter, they got Bamba, they got Okiki, they got Wagner, and then Ross is still on team, and then Isaac's gonna come back. I think you don't draft another forward
that you want to give minutes to.
Oh yeah. It's like, what, obviously you just draft at this point. You're like, all right, we kind of have talent everywhere. Let's just draft the best available. But I think they're eyeing Chet too. I think they know Bamba's not the set. And if they really think that Carter can play next to Chet, I think that's a nice fit. And that's who I would go with, obviously, if they had the option.
This year, you got to trade Mo Bamba. Like, at this point, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. And especially if you can replace him with someone on a fresh rookie contract. Like, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if they're going to get much back from Bamba. I think maybe they'll get a decent vet and like or maybe 2 second-round picks for him, which is fine. I'd take that.
Playing time for other guys. It's just time to move on.
Like, I don't think Bamba's potential is gone. I just think the Magic found their center in Wendell Carter. I think they're just kind of kicking the can down the road by playing. I mean, they might as well play him, so he can only increase his value. I mean, from where he was at. Not saying he was rock bottom, but he went from never playing. So the more he plays, maybe the Thunder will see something, and maybe the Thunder drop, and they're like, all right, we'll take on Mo Bamba. Here's one of our 1,000 first-round picks. But
yeah, definitely could see that.
Yeah, but I mean, lottery as being a secondary Timberwolves fan, lottery's been the most exciting year for me, a part of the year for me the last few years. And now with the Magic back in there, it's nice to actually compete for a decent pick now, honestly. Like, it's kind of depressing when you're just a fringe team like the Hornets were, like the Pistons were, like the Timberwolves were, where you're like, the lottery doesn't matter because I know what pick I have. It's going to be like 12 through 15. So it's not exciting enough up until last few years for the Timberwolves. But
you're bad enough where it's exciting.
Yeah, well, now we're bad. It's so bad it's exciting. It's the spectrum. Like, nobody cares if it's too hot. I mean, nobody cares if it's in between. They only care if it's cold or scorching hot. So
yeah, that's true.
One team that made a giant trade and that they said, no, we're not going to rebuild. We want to win now are the Sacramento Kings. These guys. They said, very controversial it was this trade because only a 21-year-old, very promising Tyrese Halliburton was traded with Buddy Hield, who's a guy who's been, we've all known has been out for like year and a half. He hasn't been emotionally on the Kings. Now they're on the Pacers, and the Kings have Domantas Sabonis. So it's taken a few effects right away. Rashad Holmes is not the starting center. They're choosing Sabonis, and they're just buying all in with Fox and Sabonis. So this offseason, what do you think they need to do to maybe do like a Bulls reload where they're like, hey, let's take on all this talent and start being good? What do you think they need to start with?
Well, I think you're going to have to find another decent forward at either the power forward or the small forward position. Harrison Barnes is pretty good, but maybe another guy alongside him, some kind of stretch for. Like, obviously, the Cavaliers are having some good success with a couple of big men, and they are rocking it with Markkanen, Allen, and Mobley. And then you've got other teams seeing success like that. I would like to see them maybe bring in another big man. I don't know who
Yeah,
specifically. Maybe a Jeremy Grant honestly could be solid. Um, I don't know what they'd have to give up to do it. Like
probably Barnes. I think I don't know what other contracts they have right off the
yeah, I
top of my
mean,
head.
they're obviously willing to give up guys,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I mean, they can always use more shooting. I
Oh
think
yeah.
you can sign that with some smaller contracts. But off the top of my head, I mean, there's not a lot of like notable free agents this year.
No, it's a pretty big veteran. I think a lot of playoff teams or fringe playoff teams are going to be signing veterans like I pre-mentioned Ricky Rubio, who I think would be a nice backup point guard for these guys here. I mean, they're 16th in offense, 19th in defense. Immediately, defense is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they got to get some more defensive big men, especially next to Sabonis. It'd also be nice to have a shooter. I think Mobamba would be a decent fit to even just try, especially next to a star like Sabonis. I think he can spread the floor. He's a shot blocker. I think that would kind of push Sabonis back to the four, or maybe you still play him at the all it is defensive position that you change. So
Yeah.
but I think their offense will get better. I mean, it's 16th now, but they just made the trade 5 games ago. So Sabonis is new. I think he's obviously going to help out their offense. I think if De'Aaron Fox returns to form of last few years, which I think he will now that Tyrese is off the team and getting less and the ball's back in Fox's hands, I think he's going to go back up to that 24 point per game score that we know. With Holmes moved to the bench, actually Holmes is probably the contract that'll get moved. If in like a
Yeah.
trade like for Jeremy Grant or
Yeah,
whichever.
because if they were trying to get a new big man, it would be replacing his minutes. They'd be trying to get someone better or different style of skill set. Because Jeremy Grant and Rashawn Holmes, totally different players, obviously, play different positions. But yeah, I mean, even like me, I don't know. John Collins is probably a big ask.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
it's
maybe a
possible though.
disgruntled Julius Randle.
I mean that after the last game, it's certainly possible. I don't know if Julius. I mean, the shooting would help. He's been inconsistent this year. The playmaking would help a lot. It's just the defense. I don't know about the defensive duo next to Randall and Sabonis. That does buy into Sabonis going to the center, and that's I'm willing to look at that experiment more because they were the Pacers. I think they were better with him as center than Miles Turner.
Yeah.
Uh Certainly shooting, I think, is the direction they should move in. Defense and shoot. I actually lean more towards shooting than defense. I think all it takes is the right coach to put together a defensive scheme. Look at what the Suns did. I mean, none of those players you could look at were good at defense before Chris Paul and Monty got there. But I think a few of the guys worth getting. I mean, vet leadership would be nice if they're trying to make a playoff push. Is like Thad Young. Obviously, I always mention him. I think he's a really nice vet. I think he would be nice to have on this team. Kyle Anderson, Joe Ingles, TJ Warren would be a great fit, actually. I would love to see
Yeah.
that happen. I think all these guys shooting Covington, help with defense, sure. But Kyle
Yeah,
Anderson
there's
actually would
different
be
tiers
great.
of players like Kyle Anderson would be solid. I think like TJ Warren is probably the best name I heard you say there. Um,
I don't know if I don't think they have the cap to sign TJ Warren though. Maybe Kyle Anderson, they can slip in like a sign and trade or something.
probably have to free up some space.
Yeah. Actually, this Kyle Anderson thing, I mean, if we jump down this rabbit hole, you get shooting, obviously you get decent defense. He'd probably fit next to Sabonis. Be slow. You wouldn't be as your pace would probably go down. Both Sabonis and him would slow down a little bit. But I mean, Fox is also the fastest player in the NBA, so that kind of offsets it with pushing the offense. And I think the Grizzlies would be open to getting a guy like Holmes. I mean, that would push either Adams goes to the Kings or something, or even if they keep Adams as a backup big, or who I mean, Adams has been great this season, especially as of late. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but I think the Grizzlies would be interested in Holmes.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, his mentality would work there. Good running gun player, but Adams is a lot better of a defender.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I think that's been valuable for the Grizzlies. I could see them looking at Holmes as like a really solid backup player for them. But
yeah.
I don't know if Rashawn Holmes sees himself as a backup player.
Yeah, I don't know. I do see now that you mentioned, I think he would be a great backup big for really any playoff team. I think he's a prototypical great backup big. I mean, maybe the salary is too large, obviously, for that backup position, but
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, it's only like 12, 14 mil. It's
I think it's 14.
nothing crazy. I mean, there's so
No,
many other big men,
it's
other
workable.
backup big men
Yeah.
getting that, but it's also like, well, it only makes sense for some teams that don't have great starting centers
Yeah.
and power forwards so that you can rotate them more. Like a team like the Timberwolves or the 76ers they don't need a guy like him because like you play him for like 20 minutes and he's going to be unhappy because that's not enough time.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, that's all politics aside, but I think the last thing I would like these Kings to do in the offseason is buy in, be like, all right, we have our shooting guard, Davion Mitchell. I think he's the answer at the two. I think he's a
Oh
great
yeah.
fit. He's starting to shoot a lot better. Obviously, he's a lockdown defender. That's what they drafted him for. I think that's what you need next to Fox.
Yeah.
He's not the
No,
best
for sure.
defender, but I think you buy in on him. He's your two. You just figure out what to do with the forwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're already bought in on him. Like trading Halliburton was the clear sign of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I just like to keep this trend. Like, even if you see a shiny shooting guard out there on play in the small trade market, I say Trusted Mitchell. I think he's a great fit. I think he's doing great as of late too. So I think
What if James Harden says, "I want to go to
all
some
right,
team"?
all right, all right. That's
Like
well,
I'm up
obviously.
top.
Uh,
Joel Embiid is not a winner. I need to go play with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis.
yeah, that's not. I mean, that's not happening. But you get my point. I think he's going to be a bright young player. I mean, he is a bright young player, and I'm super excited. He makes his. I really like watching defense, and he just makes it so entertaining. Like, he makes defense exciting. Like guys like him and Lou Dort, they're like the underdog defenders. It's just cool to watch these guys lock down all these NBA stars. But
For sure. No, I mean it's cool when they come in at a young age and they're able to lock up a guy who's been in the league for 8, 10 years. It's fun to watch. It's like, oh damn. It's like you're not as immortal as we thought you were.
yeah, but let's for our last talk, let's talk about my Magic. Right, we kind of talked about this last playoffs. Let's go full into this topic. Let's jump into this rabbit hole about these two injured Magic players. Is there a horizon? Is there
There's no hope. Hope
there's
is lost.
for Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz? Hope is lost to you. Yeah.
Over.
So
Markel Fultz, maybe there's hope, but he's coming off a torn ACL, isn't he?
he's coming off of, yeah. I mean, his knee. So I don't think it's gonna. I actually think it's gonna affect Fultz less than Jonathan Isaac. I think Fultz was still coming into his own off obviously that first injury that he came in, the thoracic outlet syndrome. He started the year off great. I mean, the Magic were doing well. He was looking like a real point guard. He was looking awesome. I mean, he's always been a great playmaker, super smart point guard. It was just scoring consistently was his issue. And I mean, he's an active defender. I'm not going to say he's great or smart, but he was an active defender. And most times that's all you need. Obviously, you need better defenders, but he's not a liability. He at least is back. Just got okayed and cleared to go back to G League practice. So he's on courts, he's practicing, he's out there. They just know haven't given a timeline when he's going to come back to the Orlando Magic team. And he, I think, though, has lost a lot more than Jonathan Isaac by being injured. Not in the way like in personal injury, but Cole really came out and Suggs is starting to pick his season up. I mean, it's tough. Like, when you're out like that, sometimes you just lose your job. And Cole's been going down lately, but he's already, he's coming off the bench. So I mean, it's nice to see these three guards. They're going to have to compete for that starting point guard, starting guard slot. And I think that's okay. It's not a terrible position to be in. However, it's going to be an uphill climb for him, even when he gets back to the NBA.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's tough for Fultz because they drafted Suggs this year. I think had they not done that, it'd be a totally different situation. But since that happened, like I feel like Fultz is automatically becoming the odd man out because of his age, being older than these other guys, at least, even if he is young still in perspective, and the injury history. But I don't know. I mean, I think realistically, if Fultz comes back and is looking great, um, looking like the guy you want him to be, I think Cole Anthony's probably the odd man out, and like
Really?
hopefully you would just be able to have Cole be your sixth man. He'd be great in that role, but you got to question if he would be happy in that role because he's a true baller and he has shined a lot of times in the starting lineup. So I don't know. I think that would be maybe not sitting so well with him.
Yeah, I mean, if Fultz came back today, even with all the potential Cole's had, I think Suggs would be the odd man that gets put out. Assuming Fultz comes back to
They
form.
gotta play Suggs because
No, I'm not saying they don't play him. I'm saying he would be the one off the bench. I'm not saying he couldn't win that role back from Cole. I'm saying if he came back today, if Fultz came back today and he was back to form, Suggs would probably be the one losing his
I think
spot
Fultz
over
will be
Cole.
coming off the bench for a bit.
Well, I know he will. I'm just saying when he's back to form. It was all hypotheticals. Like,
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I still for sure see Cole Anthony being the guy that gets benched over Jalen
uh,
Suggs. Like, I
maybe
just
with
don't
size. Actually,
see it happening the other way.
him and Fultz are pretty close to size. But one guy. So Jonathan Isaac, there's no update on his injury. They haven't said. They just said we're just seeing how things go in December. I think what sealed his fate was the emergence of Franz Wagner. I mean, you look at it, I think they're bought in on Carter. Obviously, Wendell's a great prospect. I think he's doing great. He's the second best, if not the best player on this team right now. Um, he's going to be their center or power forward. This draft, they're going to pick up Paolo or Chet or Jabari. So there's your forward or center. So that
Yeah,
just
no, I
with
for sure.
yeah.
I feel like the emergence of Franz Wagner has been very prevalent. I mean, he's a top 5 rookie this year. You can't argue it.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's looking like Jonathan Isaac. He hasn't played basketball in 18 months. It's just looking like he's running out of time for relevancy here, especially when he's got such a injury plagued history. Like this isn't the first injury he's had to come back from.
Yeah, he's been in the league. This is his 4th year in the league. He's been in the league 4 years. He's only played 136 games. That's 43% of the games. That's not good,
Yeah,
especially
no, when
over a
you're
four
playing
year
less than half of your games, like
over a
that
4 year
is a
period.
problem.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And I mean, like, granted, when he
Especially
was
your
on the
first
floor,
years in the league.
yeah, yeah, especially the first years in the league, it's almost as bad as Zion. But defensive rating of last 2020 105. I mean, I do think he's a defensive phenomenon. However, I think he lost his position with the Magic. Not saying he's not a trade candidate for anywhere else. However, I don't. It's going to be hard to work back from where he has, and I don't even think he's going to be competing for a job that's not even open. I think, and I think that's the shame
Yeah.
of it all. He's just missed too much. The team
Yeah,
had to move on.
it's just yeah, I mean, it's just like time is passing him by. Like he is not really the young promising prospect that he was looked at as before. Like as much as you'd like to still think that because he's only like what 23, like he's obviously still young, but like you compare that to Franz Wagner who's like 19 years old and doing a lot of things that Jonathan Isaac can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously he's not the same level defender he is, but offensively he gives you a lot more. And
He
he's
does.
exciting to watch. And he is a decent defender with some promise there as well. So who knows? I don't
Yeah,
think he can get as good as Isaac, but hopefully he can be healthier.
for sure, for sure. But no, this whole conversation made me be like, yeah, I think the Magic. It was one of the best 2-way trades when you think about it, about the Vucevic trade. Like Bulls got Vuce, who's as of late turned it around. He's really contributing to the Bulls. They're obviously doing well. But then you look at the Magic and they got Franz and Wendell Carter out of that trade. Like I think that was a good trade. That was
Not
that
bad.
was that
Oh
was
yeah.
they did pretty well. And Fournier, whatever. We got 2 seconds. Whatever. Fournier was.
I mean,
I think the biggest part was he was gone. Like we're just happy.
yeah, it was just good to get rid of him. His ugly ass. But with Vucevic, I mean, that was a tough guy to see go. But I mean, to be able to get 2 first-round picks out of it is great. And not only that, but you take a pick and use it on Franz Wagner, who a lot of people question him as a prospect coming into the league, maybe unfairly, just because of his brother being a bust.
Yeah, that was me.
But here it is. It's working out, and it's looking like a fun pairing with him and the Magic.
Yeah, it's. I like the future they have. I'm super excited in Suggs, more so than Cole because of the defense. And as of late, he's been showing up. He's been doing really well. He's kind of crawling out of that hole. Still inefficient, but he's showing all those flashes that we drafted him for. All those flashes of talent are there, and we're like, okay. This is fine. Efficiency will come. This is your rookie season. We just got to see what you can do, and he's doing it. And I think that's huge. But I really like Fultz. He's one of my favorite storylines in the league with his shoulder issues. I really hope he comes back. I would love to see him as the point guard, Suggs as the 2, Cole as the 6th man. I think that's the way it should be. But I don't think there's a spot.
Of what everyone wants, assuming everyone on the team is fine with that as well. So
yeah,
I think promising future here. You got a few great players with those guys you mentioned, and Franz Wagner. Wendell Carter is a solid bridge guy till maybe you get someone in the draft like a Chet Holmgren. But regardless, this is a very talented Magic team who we wanted to rebuild for a while. They took a while to rebuild, to finally rip that Band-Aid off, but here they are, and they got some fun young talent, and you got to give them credit. Yeah,
and let us know, guys. What do you guys think? Have you given up on Fultz? Have you given up on Isaac? What do you think the rotation is going to look like in 2 years? Is it going to be completely different? Comment below. Let us know.
Absolutely. Any other topics we got today, man?
I think that's it. I think that's all I got.
All right, well, cool. This is strictly ball business. All-Star break is coming up here. After that, we will see James Harden finally debut for the Philadelphia 76ers. In the meantime, lots of exciting players are playing in the league. I was watching the Bucks and Sixers just before we hopped on this, and that was looking good. I think the Bucks are my favorite to win the championship this year. I think they're going to repeat, but we'll see. This is one of the most exciting seasons I remember. So just so much parity, man.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good storylines. It's going to be an exciting offseason. I think this is going to be a good one. Bucks are my favorite too.
Yeah, no, I mean them, and honestly, it's tough not to predict a rematch of last year with how the Suns look.
Yep, both looking good. Suns are looking significantly better than they were. So,
I mean, they're on pace for like 65 wins.
That's crazy, insane.
If they go 12-12 the rest of the season, they will still have 60 wins. If they went if they had 3 wins the rest of the way, they would still make the playoffs.
Damn, that's insane.
They're so good. And so is this show that we created for you, Strictly Ball Business. Subscribe below, give us a like, let us know who's better or worse in the league, and what can you do for us lately. Alec and Dalton, we're signing off here, episode 29. See you later.
Hey guys, like and subscribe to our videos. I like talking balls. You guys like hearing about balls. Come on, just do it. Press the button.